Jake Morrison stood at attention in the landing bay of the Valoran Palace, his eyes scanning every corner and shadow. His hands rested naturally at his sides, but his muscles were ready to move in an instant. 20 years of military service had taught him that danger rarely announced itself. The Valoran homeworld gleamed like a jewel in space. Their cities rose in perfect geometric patterns, their buildings made of materials that seemed to glow with inner light. Everything here spoke of a civilization far older and more advanced than humanity. The Valorans made sure everyone knew it. Captain Ryan Foster, the lead human diplomat, adjusted his formal uniform and smiled nervously. "Remember, Jake, we're here to make friends, not enemies. The Valorans are the most powerful empire in this sector. We need this trade agreement." Jake nodded once. "I understand, sir. I'm just here to keep you safe." "The Valorans find our security measures insulting," Ryan said quietly. "They believe their world is perfectly safe. Try not to look too much like a soldier." Jake almost smiled at that. He had seen too many supposedly safe places turn deadly in seconds, but he kept his thoughts to himself and followed the diplomatic team deeper into the palace. The Valoran guards watched them with barely hidden contempt. They stood nearly 8 feet tall, their skin covered in blue and silver scales that caught the light. Their armor looked ceremonial, beautiful but impractical. Jake noticed they carried energy weapons but held them loosely, as if attack was unthinkable in the heart of their empire. Commander Vex, the captain of the Royal Guard, approached with slow, deliberate steps. His scales were darker than the others, marked with gold patterns that indicated high rank. He looked down at the human delegation with cold yellow eyes. "Welcome to the Valoran Empire," Vex said in perfect but accented English. "Your quarters have been prepared. The negotiations will begin tomorrow at dawn." Ryan bowed slightly, following the protocols they had studied for months. "We are honored by Queen Thera's invitation. The people of Earth are grateful for this opportunity." Vex's eyes swept over Jake, and something like amusement flickered across his face. "You brought a warrior to a diplomatic mission. How very human. Tell me, soldier, do you expect violence in the most secure palace in the known galaxy?" Jake met the commander's gaze steadily. "I expect nothing, Commander. I'm prepared for everything." Vex made a sound that might have been laughter. "Your species has much confidence for primitives who only recently discovered faster-than-light travel. Our empire has stood for 10,000 years. We have forgotten more about security than your world has ever known." Jake said nothing. He had learned long ago that some arguments were not worth having. Instead, he continued his visual sweep of the palace. The corridors were wide and open, with multiple entry points and few defensive positions. Beautiful, but vulnerable. The human delegation was escorted to luxurious quarters in the eastern wing of the palace. Ryan immediately began reviewing his notes for the next day's negotiations. Jake conducted a thorough security check, noting exits, sightlines, and potential threats. "You're making the staff nervous," Ryan said without looking up from his data pad. "The Valorans think we don't trust them." "I don't trust anyone with your life, sir," Jake replied. "That's my job." That evening, the humans were invited to a formal dinner in the palace gardens. The Valoran nobles gathered in small groups, their scales gleaming in the light of 3 moons. They spoke in musical voices about art, philosophy, and the superiority of their culture. The humans were tolerated but clearly not considered equals. Jake stood at the edge of the garden, his eyes constantly moving. The other security officers had relaxed, mesmerized by the alien beauty around them. But Jake noticed things. The guard rotations were predictable. The sensor grid had gaps. The palace defenses relied entirely on the assumption that no one would dare attack. A young Valoran female approached him, moving with the natural grace of her species. She wore simple robes compared to the elaborate clothing of the other nobles, but a silver circlet rested on her head. "You are the human warrior," she said. It was not a question. Jake turned to face her, recognizing the circlet as a mark of royalty. "Security officer, Your Highness." "Jake Morrison. I am Princess Lyra," she said, studying him with bright green eyes. "Third daughter of Queen Thera. You are the first human I have spoken to directly. Tell me." "Jake Morrison." Why do you watch the shadows when you stand in paradise? Because paradise is where people forget to watch, Jake answered honestly. And that's when bad things happen. Lyra tilted her head, curious. You expect danger here? In the heart of the Empire? We have not seen war in 1,000 years. Respectfully, Your Highness, that might be the problem. The princess laughed, a sound like wind chimes. You are either very brave or very foolish to suggest the Valoran Empire has grown weak. Which is it? Neither, Jake said. I'm just a man doing his job. Your people fascinate me, Lyra said. You come from such a small world. Yet you carry yourselves as if you belong among the stars. The other species whisper that humans are reckless, that you do not understand your place in the galaxy. Jake allowed himself a small smile. Maybe we don't. Or maybe we're still figuring out what our place should be. Philosophical for a warrior, Lyra observed. Our intelligence reports say your world has seen constant warfare. That your species has fought itself for thousands of years. Yet you speak of peace and cooperation. We've learned from our mistakes, Jake said. Sometimes the hard way. Before Lyra could respond, Commander Vex appeared, his expression disapproving. Princess, your mother requests your presence. It is not appropriate for you to speak with the alien guards. Lyra's eyes flashed with annoyance, but she bowed her head slightly. Of course, Commander. She turned back to Jake. Perhaps we will speak again. Human, I find your perspective interesting. Jake watched her go, then returned his attention to his surroundings. Something felt wrong, though he could not identify what. The guard patterns were too regular. The nobles too relaxed. In his experience, when everything seemed perfect, that was when danger was closest. Across the garden, hidden among the flowering trees, eyes watched the princess. Plans set in motion months ago were reaching their final stage. Tomorrow, during the ceremony, the empire would change forever, and no primitive human warrior would be able to stop it. But they had made one crucial mistake. They had underestimated what a human would be willing to sacrifice. They did not understand that some warriors fought not for glory or conquest, but for something far more powerful. They fought because it was right. Jake stood his watch, unaware that in less than a day, he would prove what humanity truly meant to the galaxy. He would show them that courage was not measured in technology or ancient bloodlines. It was measured in the moment when everything went wrong and one person decided to stand anyway. The garden party continued. Music played. The Valorans celebrated their superiority. And in the shadows, both seen and unseen, the pieces moved toward collision. The morning ceremony began with traditional Valoran music that seemed to come from the air itself. Princess Lyra stood in the center of the royal garden, surrounded by hundreds of nobles and dignitaries from across the empire. She wore ceremonial robes of deep purple and silver, her scales catching the light of the rising sun. Jake stood with the human delegation near the outer circle of observers. Captain Ryan looked pleased. The negotiations had gone well overnight. The trade agreement would be signed today, opening new opportunities for Earth. But Jake could not shake the feeling of wrongness that had plagued him since last night. His eyes moved constantly across the crowd. The Valoran guards stood at their posts, relaxed and inattentive. They had done this ceremony 1,000 times. Nothing ever went wrong in the heart of the Empire. Queen Thera entered the garden, and the crowd fell silent. She was magnificent, her scales darker than her daughter's, marked with intricate gold patterns that spoke of age and wisdom. She moved to stand beside Lyra, and the ceremony began. A priest in flowing white robes stepped forward to speak the ancient words of blessing. The nobles bowed their heads. The guards looked away respectfully, and that was when Jake saw it. A figure in servant's clothing moved wrong. The walk was off, too purposeful. The hands were positioned near a concealed bulge at the waist. Jake's combat instincts screamed danger. He started moving before his conscious mind caught up. The servant's hand went to his waist, pulling out a compact energy weapon. At the same moment, 5 more figures threw off their disguises across the garden, all aimed at Princess Lyra. "Gun!" Jake shouted, already running. The first shot fired, a bolt of blue energy that would have struck Lyra in the chest. Jake threw himself forward, his shoulder hitting the princess and driving her to the ground as the blast scorched the air where she had stood. The garden erupted into chaos. Nobles screamed and scattered. Velaran guards fumbled for weapons, confused by the impossible attack. Commander Vex roared orders, but his soldiers were out of position, blocked by panicking civilians. Jake rolled to his feet, putting himself between Lyra and the attackers. 2 more energy bolts came at them. He grabbed the princess and dove behind a stone fountain as the blasts shattered flowering trees behind them. "Stay down," he ordered, his voice hard and calm despite the chaos. 3 assassins charged their position from different angles. Velaran guards were trying to reach them, but they were too slow. Too shocked by violence in their sacred space, Jake had no weapon. He had agreed to come unarmed to avoid insulting his hosts. But he had his training, his body, and most importantly, his willingness to use both. The first assassin reached the fountain. Jake moved like water, flowing around the attack. He caught the alien's weapon arm, twisted hard, and felt the joint snap. The energy weapon clattered away. Jake's elbow struck the assassin's throat, and the creature dropped. The second and third came together. Jake could not fight both at once, not without taking hits. So, he did not try to avoid them. Instead, he moved toward them. An energy bolt caught him in the left shoulder. The pain was like touching a star, burning through muscle and bone. Jake ignored it. He had been hurt before. Pain was just information, and right now it informed him he was still alive and still moving. He grabbed the second assassin's weapon with his right hand, forcing it up. The next shot went wild into the sky. Jake's knee came up hard between the alien's legs. The anatomy was different, but pain was universal. The assassin doubled over, and Jake drove his elbow down on the back of its neck. The third assassin had a clear shot now. Jake saw the weapon rising, knew he could not reach it in time. He did the only thing he could. He turned his body to shield Lyra, who still crouched behind the fountain. The energy bolt took him in the side, then another in his right leg. Jake felt his body protest, felt systems starting to shut down. But not yet. Not while the princess was in danger. He stumbled forward, grabbed the assassin's weapon hand, and headbutted the alien as hard as he could. His human skull proved harder than Valoran facial plates. The assassin staggered back, stunned. Jake took the weapon and used it as a club, striking with desperate strength until the creature fell. 2 more assassins were coming. Jake could barely stand now. Blood ran from his wounds, more than should be possible, and still remained conscious. But humans from Earth had one advantage that no other species truly understood. They came from a world that tried to kill them every day for millions of years. They had evolved to keep fighting long past the point when they should be dead. "Commander," Jake shouted, "get the princess out." Commander Vex had finally fought through the crowd with his guards. His eyes widened at the sight of Jake, wounded and swaying, still standing between the princess and danger. The last 2 assassins fired together. Jake felt the impacts, one in his chest, one in his stomach. He fell to his knees. The world started to gray out at the edges, but Lyra was behind him. The guards were almost there, just a few more seconds. He forced himself to stand. His legs shook, blood soaked through his uniform. The assassins raised their weapons again, confused that this human would not die properly. Jake did not have the strength to dodge. He did not have the strength to fight. But he had enough strength for one more thing. He charged. The weapons fired. Jake felt the impacts, but his momentum carried him forward. He crashed into both assassins, bearing them down through pure dead weight. His hands found throats and squeezed. The aliens tried to throw him off, but Jake held on with the last of his strength. Valoran guards swarmed over them. Weapons were torn away. The assassins were pulled back and restrained. Jake rolled onto his back, staring up at the alien sky. Commander Vex's face appeared above him, the Valoran's yellow eyes filled with shock. "Medic! Now, princess?" Jake managed to whisper. Safe, Vex said. Because of you. Jake nodded slightly. Good. That was good. The gray at the edges of his vision was spreading now, cool and soft. His body had done everything it could. Time to rest. He heard Lyra's voice, high and frightened. Is he dying? Commander. Is he dying? His wounds are fatal, Vex said quietly. No one survives this much damage. I do not know how he is still breathing. Save him, Lyra demanded. He saved my life. You have to save him. Jake wanted to tell her it was okay. This was his job. This was what he chose to do. But the words would not come anymore. The world was fading to black. The last thing he heard was another voice, powerful and ancient. Queen Thera, move aside, she commanded. The crowd parted. The queen knelt beside Jake. Her scales catching the light, she looked at his wounds, at the blood pooling beneath him, at his chest, still rising and falling in shallow breaths. This human defended my daughter with his life, she said, her voice carrying across the silent garden. He faced 6 armed warriors with no weapon. He took mortal wounds to shield her body with his own. This is courage beyond measure. She stood, her presence filling the space like gravity. Invoke the ancient law. A debt of royal blood has been created. This warrior will not die. I forbid it. But my queen, a Valoran physician protested. His injuries are beyond our ability to heal. His species is too different. We do not have the knowledge to save him. Queen Thera's eyes blazed with authority that had ruled an empire for centuries. Then gain the knowledge. Study his biology. Adapt your techniques. Call in every medical expert in the empire. I do not care what it costs or how long it takes. This human stood between death and my daughter. Now we will stand between death and him. She looked down at Jake's unconscious form one more time. He is Valoran now, by right of sacrifice, and we do not abandon our own. Commander Vex immediately began barking orders. Medical teams rushed forward with equipment. The human delegation was pushed back, but Captain Ryan fought to stay close. Will he survive? Ryan asked, his voice tight with emotion. I do not know, Vex admitted. His earlier contempt was completely gone, replaced by something like awe. But I have never seen anyone fight like that. 6 attackers. No weapon. Already wounded. Any other species would have fallen after the first hit. But he kept moving. Kept protecting. I thought humans were weak primitives. Then you thought wrong, Ryan said quietly. As Jake was carefully lifted onto an anti-gravity stretcher, Princess Lyra touched his hand. Tears ran down her scaled cheeks. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you, brave human. The garden was a mess of blood and broken stone. 6 assassins lay in custody, and 1 human warrior lay between life and death, having changed the course of an empire through one moment of selfless courage. The Valorans would learn what it meant to earn a human's protection, and they would learn what humanity truly valued. Not technology, not conquest, not even their own lives, but the lives of those they chose to defend. The Royal Medical Center had never seen such frantic activity. Valoran physicians and scientists crowded around the tank, where Jake Morrison floated in healing fluid, his body kept alive by machines that were never designed for human biology. Dr. Krell, the chief royal physician, studied the medical scans with growing frustration. His scales had paled from stress, and his hands shook slightly as he pointed to the displays. Your Majesty, I must be honest with you, he said to Queen Thera, who stood watching the human warrior with unreadable eyes. His species is too different from ours. The energy weapons cauterized his wounds, which is the only reason he survived transport. But the damage to his internal organs is catastrophic. Our healing technology cannot adapt quickly enough to his biology. Then make it adapt, the Queen said simply. We are trying, but it will take time we do not have. Hours, perhaps. After that, even his remarkable resilience will fail. Captain Ryan stood nearby, his face drawn with worry. We can transport him to Earth. Our medical facilities understand human physiology. They might be able to save him. No, Queen Thera said firmly. He fell protecting my daughter on Valoran soil. He will be healed on Valoran soil, or he will die as one of us. This is my decree. Ryan started to protest, but Princess Lyra stepped forward, placing a hand on his arm. The Queen has invoked the law of royal blood debt. It is sacred to our people. Jake Morrison is under the protection of the throne now. No power in the Empire can override that. She had not left the medical center since Jake was brought in. Her ceremonial robes were still stained with his blood. She stood beside the healing tank for hours, watching his pale face beneath the fluid, willing him to keep breathing. He asked about me, she said softly. As he lay dying, with 6 wounds that should have killed him, he asked if I was safe. Not for help, not for mercy, just if I was safe. Commander Vex entered the room, his armor showing scorch marks from the battle. Behind him came 3 Valoran scientists carrying equipment and data pads. Your Majesty, I have brought the xenobiology team as you requested. They have begun analyzing the human medical data that Captain Ryan provided. The lead scientist, a female named Dr. Sora, bowed quickly to the Queen and immediately moved to the displays. Her eyes widened as she absorbed the information. Remarkable, she breathed. Their cellular structure is completely different from standard galactic biology. Look at this. Their blood uses iron to carry oxygen instead of copper. Their healing factor relies on a completely separate system from ours. Can you save him? Queen Thera asked bluntly. Dr. Sora hesitated. Possibly. But we need to understand more about human resilience. According to these scans, he should have died within minutes of the first wound. Yet he fought for nearly 2 minutes more with injuries that would kill any Valoran instantly. His body seems designed to keep functioning far past normal limits. They come from a death world, Lyra said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. I researched Earth last night. Their planet is more dangerous than 90% of habitable worlds. Extreme weather, deadly predators, constant natural disasters. Humans evolved to survive conditions that would kill most species. That is why he could keep fighting. Dr. Krell pulled up Earth's planetary data on the main display. The room fell silent as they read. Gravity 20% higher than galactic standard. One scientist read aloud. Atmospheric oxygen content that would be toxic to most species. Temperature variations that would require environmental suits for safe Valoran habitation. And they evolved under these conditions naturally? For millions of years, Ryan said. We did not know other worlds were easier to live on until we reached the stars. We thought all planets were like Earth. Commander Vex stared at the data, understanding dawning in his eyes. That is why he fought the way he did. Not with grace or precision like our warriors, but with raw endurance. He simply refused to stop. His species does not know how to stop, Queen Thera said. She gestured to the historical records that Ryan had provided. Look at their wars, their struggles. They have faced extinction dozens of times and survived through sheer determination. We Valorans pride ourselves on our ancient civilization. But we have had peace for 1,000 years. Humans have never known true peace. They have been at war with their own world since they first stood upright. Dr. Sora was working rapidly now, her fingers flying across the control panels. If we account for their higher metabolic rate and different cellular chemistry, I can modify our healing protocols. It will be experimental, but do it, the Queen ordered. Spare no resource. Every medical expert in the Empire is at your disposal. Over the next hours, the medical center became a hub of frantic research. Valoran scientists studied human biology with intense focus. Amazed by what they discovered, the ability to metabolize a wide range of foods, the capacity to survive severe dehydration, the way human brains could shut down pain signals to allow continued function in crisis. They are persistence hunters, Dr. Sora explained to the Queen. Before their technology, humans would chase prey for days until the animal collapsed from exhaustion. Their bodies are built for endurance that our species cannot match. Princess Lyra watched Jake's vital signs fluctuate on the monitors. Sometimes they dipped so low that alarms sounded, but then they would stabilize again. his body fighting, even unconscious, to stay alive. "Why did he do it?" she asked softly. "He barely knew me. We spoke for only a few minutes last night. Why would he give his life for a stranger?" Captain Ryan considered the question. "Because it was right. Jake has always been like that. He sees someone in danger, and he moves to help. It does not matter if they are human or alien, friend or stranger. There are people who talk about duty and honor, and then there are people who live it. Jake is the second kind." Commander Vex had been silent, watching the medical team work. Finally, he spoke. "I mocked him yesterday. Called his vigilance paranoid. Suggested his presence was an insult to our security." He paused, his voice heavy with regret. He was right about everything. The guard rotations, the security gaps, the complacency. If he had not been watching, if he had not moved when he did, Princess Lyra would be dead, and I would bear that shame forever. "You cannot blame yourself for peace," Queen Thera said. "We have been safe for so long that we forgot danger existed. This human, from his violent world, remembered. And he saved my daughter. Because we had forgotten." A sudden alarm made everyone turn. Jake's vital signs were dropping rapidly. Dr. Sora rushed to the controls, making adjustments. "His body is failing," she said urgently. "The damage is too severe. Even with our modifications, he is dying." "No," Princess Lyra said fiercely. She moved to the tank, pressing her hand against the transparent surface. "You do not get to die, Jake Morrison. You saved my life. Now you have to live. Do you hear me? You have to live." "Doctor." Sora injected a new compound into the healing fluid. "This is a hybrid formula. Part Valoran medicine, part adapted for human biology. If it works, his body should begin repairing itself. If it does not..." She did not finish the sentence. The room held its collective breath. Seconds stretched into minutes. The monitors showed Jake's vital signs, hovering at the edge of death. Then, slowly, a heartbeat strengthened. Oxygen levels rose. Brain activity increased. "It is working," Dr. Krell breathed. "By the ancestors, it is working." Jake's body began to heal, faster than any Valoran had seen. The human capacity for recovery, combined with advanced Valoran medicine, created something unprecedented. Wounds closed, damaged tissue regenerated. The monitors showed systems coming back online one by one. Queen Thera exhaled slowly. "How long until he wakes?" "Days, perhaps weeks," Dr. Sora said. "His body needs time to rebuild, but he will survive, Your Majesty. The debt can be honored." Lyra sagged with relief, tears streaming down her face. Commander Vex bowed deeply to the unconscious human. "I will find who sent those assassins," he vowed. "And they will answer for this attack." "See that you do," Queen Thera said. Then she turned to Captain Ryan. "Your warrior has earned something no human has ever possessed. The respect of the Valoran Empire. When he wakes, tell him he has my gratitude, and more than that, he has my friendship." Ryan bowed. "He would say he was just doing his job, Your Majesty." "Perhaps," the Queen said, "but we both know it was more than that. It was a choice. A choice to value another life over his own. That is not training or duty. That is character." She looked at Jake, floating peacefully in the healing tank, his face calm now as his body fought its way back from death. "The galaxy thinks humans are primitive because you reached space so recently. They see your endless wars and think you violent. But they do not understand what those wars taught you. They do not know the strength that comes from surviving a death world. They have not learned what we are learning now." "What is that, Your Majesty?" Ryan asked. Queen Thera smiled, a sight that made her look centuries younger. "That humanity's greatest weapon is not your technology, or your ships, or your guns. It is your willingness to stand between danger and those who cannot defend themselves. That is what will change the galaxy." Outside the medical center, news of the human warrior's sacrifice was spreading. The attack on the princess was bad enough, But the story of one small human fighting 6 trained assassins to protect her was spreading like fire through the Empire. And across the galaxy, other species were hearing the name Jake Morrison. They were learning what it meant when a human decided someone was worth protecting. The Valorans had learned this lesson in blood and courage. Soon, others would learn it too. For 6 days, Jake Morrison floated in the healing tank. Unaware of the changes happening around him, the Valoran Empire was in chaos. But it was a productive chaos, one driven by determination and growing understanding. Princess Lyra had transformed. The curious young royal who wandered the palace gardens had become a focused researcher, spending every free hour studying Earth and its people. She sat in the palace library, surrounded by datapads and holographic displays. Absorbing humanity's brutal and beautiful history, she read about their ancient wars, the world wars that killed millions, the nuclear weapons they created and, miraculously, chose not to use to extinction. The Cold War, where 2 powers held each other hostage with weapons that could destroy their entire world, yet somehow found the wisdom to step back from the edge. She learned about their literature, their music, their art, how they created beauty even in the darkest times, how they found hope when hope seemed impossible, how they loved and laughed and dreamed even on a world that tried to kill them every day. But what struck her most was their philosophy of sacrifice. From ancient soldiers who stood at Thermopylae to modern firefighters who rushed into burning buildings, humans had a long tradition of protecting others at cost to themselves. Commander Vex found her in the library late one night, her eyes red from reading. "You should rest, princess," he said gently. "I cannot," Lyra replied. "I need to understand. Jake barely knew me. We spoke for 5 minutes. Yet he was willing to die for me. Why? What in their culture creates warriors like that? Why?" Vex sat down across from her, his massive frame filling the chair. "I have been investigating the assassins. And I have learned things about humans too. Things that shame me." "What do you mean?" The human delegation offered to transport Jake to Earth for treatment. Their facilities could have saved him with certainty. But Queen Thera refused. She invoked the royal blood debt and forbade his removal. Lyra nodded. "That is our law. Our honor." "But it put his life at greater risk," Vex said quietly. "Our medical science was not prepared for human biology. We might have failed. He might have died because of our pride. But we did not fail," Lyra pointed out. "Because human medical science helped us," Vex said. "Captain Ryan gave us everything they knew about human biology. Even though we had essentially taken custody of their warrior, they could have demanded his return, could have threatened diplomatic consequences. Instead, they helped us save him." He pulled up a holographic display showing Jake's medical progress. "Look at this. 6 days ago, he was minutes from death. Now, his vital signs are stronger than they were before the attack. The combination of our healing technology and human resilience has created something remarkable." Lyra studied the scans. "When will he wake?" "Soon, the doctors say." "Perhaps today." Vex hesitated, then continued. "I have also completed my investigation into the attack. The results are disturbing. Tell me, the assassins were hired by a faction of nobles who oppose the Queen's opening to humanity. They believe humans are beneath us, that trading with them demeans the Empire. They wanted to kill you and blame the human delegation, starting a war that would isolate us from Earth forever." Lyra's scales darkened with anger. "They were willing to kill me to maintain their prejudice?" "Yes. And they nearly succeeded because I shared their contempt for humans. I dismissed Jake's security concerns. I mocked his vigilance. I left gaps in our defenses because I believed no one would dare attack the Valoran Empire." Vex's voice was heavy with self-recrimination. "I was wrong about everything." Before Lyra could respond, Dr. Sora rushed into the library, her eyes bright with excitement. "Princess, Commander, he is waking. The human is waking." They rushed to the medical center. Queen Thera was already there, having been called immediately. Captain Ryan stood nervously nearby, flanked by other members of the human delegation. In the tank, Jake's eyes were open. He looked confused, disoriented, moving his arms slowly in the healing fluid. Dr. Sora began the revival process, carefully draining the fluid and adjusting the atmospheric settings for human comfort. The tank opened with a soft hiss. Jake coughed, drawing in air that was not filtered through fluid. Automated arms wrapped him in a warming blanket and helped him sit up. His eyes focused slowly, taking in the crowd of aliens watching him. Then he saw Princess Lyra, and something like relief crossed his face. "Princess," he said, his voice rough from disuse, "you are safe." It was not a question. It was what he needed to confirm before anything else. Lyra felt tears on her face again. "Yes, Jake Morrison. I am safe because of you." Jake nodded slightly, then seemed to notice his surroundings for the first time. "How long was I out?" 6 days, Dr. Sora said. "You were clinically dead twice. Your injuries should have been fatal. But you survived. Stubborn, I guess," Jake said with a weak smile. He tried to stand, then wobbled. Commander Vex moved quickly to support him, the massive Valoran's arms steadying the human. "Easy, warrior," Vex said. "Your body has been through trauma that would kill most beings. You need to rest." Jake looked up at the commander, recognition in his eyes. "You are the one who said I was paranoid. I was wrong," Vex said simply. "About everything. You were right about the security vulnerabilities. Right about the danger. Right to stand watch when everyone else believed we were safe. I mocked you for it. And because of my arrogance, you nearly died. For that, I apologize." Jake blinked in surprise. "You are apologizing to me? You saved the heir to the Valoran throne with no thought for your own life. You fought 6 trained assassins while unarmed and wounded. You have earned more than an apology. You have earned my respect, and the respect of every warrior in this empire." Queen Thera stepped forward, and the room fell silent. Jake tried to bow, but the Queen gestured for him to remain seated. "Jake Morrison of Earth," she said formally. "You have rendered service to the Valoran throne that can never be fully repaid. You stood between death and my daughter. You gave your blood and nearly your life to protect her. By the ancient law of royal blood debt, you are now under the protection of the throne. More than that, you are now Valoran by right of sacrifice." Jake looked confused. Captain Ryan stepped closer to explain. "The Queen has granted you honorary citizenship, Jake. It is one of the highest honors in the Empire." "I was just doing my job, Your Majesty," Jake said. "No," Lyra said firmly. "You went far beyond duty. Duty would have been staying at your post. Duty would have been calling for backup. You charged 6 armed enemies with no weapon and wounds that were killing you. That was not duty. That was heroism." Jake looked uncomfortable with the attention. "Is everyone else safe? Captain Ryan? The other delegates?" "All safe," Ryan assured him. "The trade agreements are signed. Relations between Earth and the Valoran Empire are stronger than ever. Largely because of what you did. The galaxy is talking about you," Lyra said. "The story of the human warrior who defied death to protect an alien princess. Other species are reconsidering their views of humanity." "Great," Jake muttered. "I am going to be in so many reports when I get home." Despite everything, the room laughed. The tension broke like a wave, replaced by genuine warmth. Dr. Sora approached with a medical scanner. "I need to run more tests. Your recovery is proceeding faster than we predicted. The hybrid treatment seems to have enhanced your natural healing abilities." As she worked, Queen Thera spoke again. "Commander Vex has completed his investigation. The conspirators have been identified and will face justice. They sought to use my daughter's death to turn the Empire against humanity. Instead, they have achieved the opposite. Your courage has shown the Valoran people what humans truly are." "What are we, Your Majesty?" Jake asked. "Survivors," the Queen said. "Warriors not by choice, but by necessity. Protectors who value others' lives over your own. You come from a harsh world that taught you strength we cannot understand. We Valorans have had peace for so long that we forgot the price of protecting it. You reminded us. She gestured to the holographic display showing Earth. I have studied your world, your wars, your struggles, your endless fight against nature itself. Any other species would have abandoned such a planet. But humans stayed. You adapted. You thrived. And now you bring that resilience to the stars. Jake looked at the image of his homeworld, a blue and white marble floating in space. Earth made us what we are, but we are trying to be better, to take the strength it gave us and use it for more than just survival. That is why you will succeed, Queen Thera said. Other species reach the stars through conquest or trade. Humans reach them through sheer determination. And now that you are here, you choose cooperation over domination. That combination of strength and wisdom will take you far. Princess Lyra stepped closer to Jake. I want to learn more about Earth. About humanity. Will you teach me? Jake smiled. I am just a security officer, Princess. I am not a teacher. You already taught me the most important lesson, Lyra said. That true strength is not in weapons or technology. It is in standing up when everything tells you to run away. It is in protecting others even when it costs you everything. Commander Vex nodded agreement. I would like to learn from you as well. Our warriors have grown soft with peace. We need to remember what it means to truly protect, not just stand guard. Jake looked around at the aliens, watching him with respect and friendship. 6 days ago, they had viewed him as a primitive. Now they saw him as an equal. More than that, as a teacher. I will help however I can, he said finally. But first, can someone get me some real food? That healing fluid does not count as breakfast. The laughter that filled the medical center was genuine and warm. The Valoran Empire and humanity had found common ground not through treaties or trade, but through one man's willingness to do what was right, regardless of cost. And across the galaxy, the message was spreading. Humanity had arrived among the stars, and they had brought with them something the galaxy had forgotten, heroes who fought not for glory, but for others. 3 weeks after the attack, Jake Morrison stood in the grand ceremonial hall of the Valoran Palace. His formal uniform had been replaced with clothing that combined human and Valoran styles, a visible symbol of the bridge he had become between two worlds. The hall was filled with thousands of Valorans and representatives from dozens of alien species. News of the human warrior's sacrifice had spread across the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. Everyone wanted to witness the ceremony honoring the man who had changed how the galaxy viewed humanity. Jake felt deeply uncomfortable with all the attention. He was a soldier, not a politician or celebrity. But Captain Ryan had explained that this ceremony was about more than just Jake. It was about humanity's place among the stars. Princess Lyra stood beside him, wearing the same ceremonial robe she had worn on the day of the attack. She had insisted on standing with him, saying that they were bound together by blood and courage. Over the past weeks, they had become genuine friends. She had taught him about Valoran culture and philosophy. He had shared stories of Earth, of human history, both terrible and beautiful. Are you nervous? She asked quietly. Terrified, Jake admitted. I can fight armed assassins, but crowds make me want to run. Lyra laughed softly. You hide it well. You look very calm. Years of practice. In the military, you learn to look confident, even when you have no idea what you are doing. Commander Vex approached, his armor polished to perfection. Over the past weeks, he and Jake had spent many hours together. Vex was redesigning the entire Royal Guard security system based on Jake's observations. More importantly, they had become friends. The Queen is ready, Vex said. Are you prepared? As much as I will ever be, Jake replied. The crowd fell silent as Queen Thera entered the hall. She moved with the authority of someone who had ruled for centuries, but there was warmth in her eyes as she looked at Jake. Let the ceremony begin, she announced, her voice carrying across the vast space. A Valoran priest stepped forward, carrying an ancient book bound in material that seemed to shimmer with inner light. He read from it in the old language, then translated for the assembled guests. In the long history of the Valoran Empire, the law of royal blood debt has been invoked only 17 times. It is our most sacred law, recognizing those who give their lives in defense of the royal line. Today, we honor the 18th. The priest turned to Jake. Jake Morrison of Earth, you stood between death and Princess Lyra. You fought 6 armed warriors with no weapon. You took mortal wounds meant for her. You gave your blood freely, asking nothing in return. By our law, this creates a debt that can never be fully repaid. Queen Thera stepped forward. In her hands, she held a silver circlet, similar to the one Lyra wore, but marked with different symbols. This circlet marks you as a protector of the throne, she said. It grants you the right to speak in the royal council, to command resources in defense of the empire, to stand as equal to any noble in this realm. More than that, it marks you as Valoran, bound to us by sacrifice and honor. She placed the circlet on Jake's head. It felt surprisingly light, but the weight of what it represented was heavy. I also grant you the title of Guardian, the Queen continued. You are the first of your species to hold this rank. May you not be the last. The hall erupted in applause. Jake stood still, overwhelmed by the moment. He had done what any good soldier would do. Protected someone who needed protecting. Yet here he was, being honored by an empire that spanned hundreds of worlds. When the applause faded, Queen Thera spoke again. But I know humans value choice above all else. So I offer you a choice now, Jake Morrison. You may remain here as guardian of the empire, helping train our warriors and advise our security. Or you may return to Earth with our eternal gratitude and friendship. Whatever you choose, you will always have a home among the Valorans. The hall fell silent. Everyone waited for Jake's answer. Jake took a deep breath. Your Majesty, I am honored by your offer, truly honored, but my duty is to my own people. Earth needs experienced officers. We are new to the galaxy, still learning our place among the stars. I can serve humanity better by returning home and sharing what I have learned here. He saw disappointment flicker across some faces, but Queen Thera nodded with understanding. A wise choice, she said. And one that increases my respect for you. You could have claimed wealth and power here. Instead, you choose duty to your people. That is the mark of a true warrior. Princess Lyra stepped forward. Then, let me make a request. With the Queen's permission, I wish to establish a formal exchange program between Earth and the Valoran Empire. We will send our scholars and warriors to learn from humanity. And we hope humans will come here to learn from us. Queen Thera smiled. An excellent idea. And I name Jake Morrison as the human liaison for this program. He will have the authority to speak for Earth in all matters relating to our alliance. Captain Ryan, standing in the crowd, looked surprised but pleased. This was a significant promotion in diplomatic terms. Jake was being given real power to shape human-Valoran relations. Jake bowed to the Queen. I will do my best to honor your trust, Your Majesty. I know you will, she replied. The ceremony continued with formal speeches and traditional music. But Jake's part was done. As he stepped back, Commander Vex approached with several Valoran warriors. Before you leave, Vex said, we have a request. Will you spar with us? Let us see the human fighting style that defeated 6 assassins. Jake grinned. Sure, but I was running on adrenaline and desperation that day. I am not that good. We will be the judge of that, Vex said. The next day, in the Royal Guard training hall, Jake demonstrated human combat techniques to fascinated Valoran warriors. They were shocked by how direct and brutal human fighting was compared to their formal styles, but they also recognized its effectiveness. You fight like someone who expects to be hurt, one warrior observed. Because we usually are, Jake explained. On Earth, almost everything can hurt you. Animals, weather, other humans. So we learn to keep fighting even when injured. We learn to use our environment as a weapon. We learn that pretty techniques do not matter as much as determination. The Valorans practiced the moves eagerly. Jake watched them adapt, combining their natural grace with human persistence. It was something new, something that drew strength from both species. Princess Lyra watched from the observation deck, making notes. She had announced her intention to write a comprehensive study of human culture. Her research would help other Valorans understand the species that had so dramatically entered their lives. That evening, Jake sat with Lyra in the palace gardens, the same place where they had first truly talked. It felt like years ago instead of weeks. "I will miss this place," Jake said honestly. "And I will miss you, Princess." "You do not have to call me Princess when we are alone," Lyra said. "We are friends now." "Friends who live light years apart," Jake pointed out. "Distance means little with faster-than-light travel," Lyra countered. "And you will be the human liaison. You will have to visit often," Jake smiled. "True. And you will visit Earth?" "Absolutely. I want to see this death world that created warriors like you. I want to understand how such a harsh planet produced such compassionate people." "We are not all compassionate," Jake warned. "Earth has plenty of problems, plenty of people who only care about themselves. Every species has those," Lyra said. "But you also have people like you. People who run toward danger instead of away from it. People who protect strangers, people who choose to do what is right even when it costs them everything." She looked up at the alien stars above them. "The galaxy has grown comfortable. We have peace through superior technology and ancient treaties. But we have forgotten what it means to truly sacrifice for others. Humans remember. You carry that knowledge from your violent past. And now, you can teach it to us." "That is a lot of responsibility for one security officer," Jake said. "You are not just a security officer anymore," Lyra pointed out. "You are a guardian, a liaison, a bridge between species. The galaxy is watching you. Jake Morrison, watching to see what humanity will do now that you have proven your worth." Jake was quiet for a moment. "We are going to make mistakes. Humans are good at that. Everyone makes mistakes. What matters is what you do after. Do you learn? Do you try to be better? From what I have seen, humans do both." The next morning, the human delegation prepared to depart. The trade agreements were signed, the alliance was formalized, and Jake Morrison, wearing his silver circlet, stood as living proof of what that alliance meant. Queen Thera came to see them off personally. "Safe travels, Guardian Morrison. Return to us soon." "I will, Your Majesty. Thank you for everything." Commander Vex clasped Jake's shoulder in the Valoran gesture of respect between warriors. "You changed this empire, human. Never doubt that. You reminded us what courage truly means. Thanks for watching. And describe. For you into this. You reminded us what courage truly means." Princess Lyra hugged Jake, ignoring the breach of royal protocol. "Thank you for saving my life. Thank you for showing us the strength of humanity. And thank you for being my friend." "Thank you for giving humanity a chance," Jake replied. As the human ship lifted from the Valoran homeworld, Jake looked back at the planet growing smaller beneath them. He had come here as a simple security officer. He was leaving as something more. A symbol, a bridge, a guardian. Captain Ryan sat beside him. "You know Earth is going to go crazy over this, right? You are going to be famous," Jake groaned. "I really hope not," Ryan laughed. "Too late. The story is already everywhere. The human who defended an alien princess, who fought off assassins while dying, who earned the respect of an empire. You are exactly the hero humanity needs right now." "I am not a hero," Jake protested. "I just did what anyone should do." "That is what makes you a hero," Ryan said seriously. "You do not think you are special. You just do what is right and expect nothing in return. That is rare, Jake. In any species." As Earth appeared on the view screen, blue and beautiful and home, Jake thought about Lyra's words. The galaxy was watching humanity now. Watching to see what they would do with the respect they had earned. He thought about the Valorans, learning to fight like humans, about the exchange program that would bring species together, about the alliances forming because one man had chosen to protect a stranger. Maybe that was humanity's role in the galaxy. Not to conquer, not to dominate, but to remind other species what they had forgotten in their long peace, that some things were worth fighting for, that protecting the innocent mattered more than personal safety. That courage was not the absence of fear, but the decision to act despite it. The ship entered Earth's atmosphere, carrying Jake Morrison home. He was changed, marked by silver and scars, carrying the title of Guardian and the weight of expectation, but he was still just Jake, still the man who saw someone in danger and moved to help, still the soldier who believed in duty and honor. And across the galaxy, on 100 worlds, aliens were learning about humanity through his story, learning that the small species from the violent blue planet had something special, something that could not be measured in weapons or technology. They had warriors who fought not for conquest, but for protection, who valued others' lives above their own, who kept standing even when every wound said fall. They had humanity, and the galaxy would never be the same. Far away on the Valoran homeworld, Princess Lyra stood in her study, surrounded by books about Earth. She smiled as she read about human history, about their endless struggles and their refusal to surrender. We have much to learn from them, she said to herself. And I believe we have much to teach them as well. The future was uncertain, but it was a future where humans and aliens stood together, learning from each other, protecting each other. And it all started because one human warrior had decided that a stranger's life was worth saving, even if it cost him everything.